My name is Moritz von Grotthuss. I'm the CEO of Gestigon. Actually, I wanted to talk today about how do we interact in AR with our hands, with objects, with menus, with each other. I want to add one topic to that. Quite a few of you know, and I've got some questions out there today, why am I still here? Because today, as you see up there, Gestigon is a Valeo brand. We got acquired some 8 weeks ago by Valeo, big European tier 1. And the big question is, why is an automotive company still here? I want to share a few thoughts about that. Generally speaking, Gestigon, we're a software company. We take depth cameras, whatever kind, we analyze the data, we detect human presence in the data, we track human motions in the data, and I actually didn't understand the difference between a motion and a gesture, but we track both of them. As I said, we are now part of automotive. Frankly speaking, automotive is an incredible market to be in. The main reason for that is, with automotive, you will never have a discussion on, does something cost 10, 50, 100, or even $1,000? If it adds value, the device car is usually so expensive you can easily add something if it provides sufficient benefits to the users and if it sells cars in the end. And we believe that AR and VR, especially AR, is a huge topic in the car. Maybe I need to be a bit more precise. I'm talking about mixed reality. If I talk about AR, see-through interaction models. Please understand if I usually talk about AR, but we mean the same. What are the use cases of AR in the car? Frankly speaking, there are quite a few of them. I wear glasses. I wear very, very strong glasses. I'm not totally sure if I'm going to have wearables in the car as the driver. But think about wearables for your kids in the back rows or the passengers in the car, and think about wearables 10 years ahead when we will hopefully have self-driving cars. They might be fairly sophisticated in 10 years, I hope at least. We will be doing quite a bit of new things in the car. We will have a pre-work, a pre-home, pre-holiday, or pre-anything kind of space in the car and living, and we will need to augment that into the car. Wearables could be one version. Practically every OEM, every tier 1 is thinking about how could wearables enter the car. That's the only solution I don't believe in. We tested that. We tested it with an HTC Vive as well as with an Oculus in the car. It can be as fast as you want. You get seasick. And whenever you have a first conference and you have a flat table and the car drives to the right, but the table moves to the left due to the controllers inside, it doesn't work. You won't have VR in the car. I'm totally convinced about that. But there's a lot of space for AR or mixed reality. The content we can have can be very, very basic car driving content, giving me more information about what is happening. And this more information can be based on location, like the speed, but it also can be based on non-location, like the speed, or could also be based on location where something is happening. Valeo has a very strong vision on that. How can we interact with content? How can we have driving content as well as non-driving content, like your favorite restaurant, the Starbucks, you don't know the address, but you want to drive to. How can we interact with that? Of course, think about any kind of visualization device in that moment. It could be a wearable. It could be a head-up display. It could be a transparent LED. It could be holograms. Whatever you think about, I think it will come into the car sooner or later. Toyota has the most incredible vision on that. If any one of you has the opportunity, check that video on YouTube. It's incredible, the vision of Toyota, what a kid in the rear seat could be doing. That's 15 years from now, maybe 20 years from now. Hopefully it's 5 years from now, otherwise my kids will be too old for that. But play with a screen, with a window, play with the content. That's really an incredible vision, and I really could imagine long distance driving with kids in the back or passengers in the back that really are doing things. Of course, you can add then, yes, we have these kind of transportation AR or VR devices. Avigant works fairly well in the car because you see the surrounding, you still have the base, not to get seasick. But I'm not sure if that's a real mobility use case. And of course, I consider that to be AR2, are things like the BMW HoloActive Touch, where you combine holographic display with very simple interaction models, hand tracking, where you know how you behave in the car. Well, some left the garage too early for whatsoever reasons. Motorcycles could be nice and interesting too. But the question always comes up, how do we control it? Whilst showing a few slides on how we control it, please excuse that I use VR devices because they're simply better available. We have a booth down there, 748. If you want to have a look at AR, come down there tomorrow and the day after. We can show where we are on that. The question is always, how do we control content? And if we talk about content, we talk about any kind of content. What is the mystery of AR? We want to do everything we do in the virtual world and everything we do in the real world on one device. So I want to grab a bottle to drink. I want to grab a sword. I want to pat a dinosaur on the nose. I want to punch the dinosaur. I want to fight him with a big gun. But I might also just want to interact and play check with my kids. Whatever, we want to do everything in AR and VR. The problem there is VR needs very, very little calibration. Anyone who had a VR device on and ever tested this, it works because we know our hands. We heard that just a few moments ago. We still know where our hands are. But we don't really care if they're there or there from a visualization point of view. Because the data we get, if the hands are in VR, are sufficient. So we don't really care for where did these hands meet. Was it a bit too low or a bit too high? The visualization was there. And actually, we were very proud that our software was running this demo. We're still talking with the White House to get an update on this. Let's see how that works out. The problem in AR, you see your hands. So there's no visualization down here or there. It's exactly where your hands are. And no one doubts about that you will be using your hands in AR. The HoloLens already uses it. Meta just as well. And we could go on, all others too. ODG, the next generation, will have a clip-on camera on. Everyone uses them. The big question here is, how do you register your hand versus any object? And it looks easy. I mean, I see my finger. Let's do it. The problem that we have here is that the line of sight of where you believe to where you see your hand in AR versus the line of sight of any kind of camera is not aligned. And that's fairly easy if everything is really stable. If I stand like this for half an hour, I will have no latency problem. But the problem is, if I start moving my finger, you have one crossing point, and you need a constant recalibration of where your finger is. And this is still on one scene. If you then start moving your head, if you then start having several objects in there, you have a constant, highly sophisticated calibration you need to run. And if you think about mobile mixed reality or AR devices, that costs a lot of computational power. If you go beyond that, you then, of course, want to interact with your fingers. I think that's the most easy way. Leap Motion has been showing that in an incredible manner. I have a knob, and I press it. I don't want to give names, but if you see different AR as well as VR devices where you try to click a menu or a knob like this, they usually demo them only sitting on a chair without rolls. Because what happens if I try this and I don't hit the knob? I do a step forward and another step forward, and then the cable is too short. So what they usually do, they sit you down on a non-rolling chair to pick things. You don't see that down here. I know they're downstairs at the show tomorrow. One very, very nice way of providing some kind of feedback where the knob is ultrasound feedback. I think the market leader there, Ultra Haptics, is down there tomorrow and the day after. Pretty incredible what those guys are doing. Just got a very nice A-series financing. You have a board of ultrasound emitters, I think they're called, down here. And in the moment you hit the flying button, you get an ultrasound tickle onto your finger. And it's pretty astonishing that whenever we get the first tickle on the finger, we stop pressing. So you hardly press through the possible button, because you know from the real world, once I start pressing on something, I usually end there. So psychologically, this tickle is sufficient not to go beyond. In AR, you need an overlay. You need an overlay that if an object is in front of your hand, it needs to be seen. It needs to be seen strongly. And anyone who works in vision processing knows the biggest tricky part there is black, because you can't project black onto a scene. We have seen solutions who are really pretty good on a dark black. I'm not sure if they're displaying here, so I wouldn't give names. But this, of course, is a challenge to know exactly where the object is versus your hand. You then, of course, want to grab objects. You want to open such a door. You don't want just to click it, because that's not the natural behavior how we do things. Just think about fighting with a machine gun like this. I mean, Hololense wants to teach us that way. I'm not sure about. At least in military service, I learned differently. And then, of course, we always like this clamp because you get a haptic feedback from your hand yourself. Others do it on the other hand, that you press things. It always helps to provide this feedback. For that, to achieve this, you need 4 levels. You need to think about 4 levels for your software. First of all, how do you integrate the software, the sensor? In an ideal world, you'd say any sensor, any headset, it always works. It's a bit of work. Then you need the processing, of course. You need the mapping of objects to each other in a 3-dimensional manner, very interactive. And you need to think about how do we provide the feedback to that. We call it a carnival. It provides all the 3 elements, the AR integration as well as the interface as well as the API. We use that, continue to use that in the car. We continue to use that in partnerships with consumer electronic companies if there is a use case in the automotive world. So we're still in the market, we're still active, we're still discussing and negotiating with the companies. Frankly speaking, come down to, I think, booth 748 tomorrow, the day after. It's work in progress. I think nobody has really solved it, at least we haven't and I haven't seen, but it's getting ahead. We're getting better and better in AR and VR. And looking forward to the future to really provide an interaction mode. I think that is it. Thank you very much.